One time we got IED'd in 3 times in 30 minutes, literally one after another, and we just thought, we've got to keep going forward, we can't go back.
Did you ever have the fear for your life?
I always said, I'm not scared of dying, but 2003 Iraq War was on. We was investigating sites of weapons, mass destruction, nuclear. There has been a few times in my life where I've gone, you got yourself in this place, you took this job. So when it is always going wrong, I just laugh, because I just think, what a frolic situation this is. So I mean,
how did you go from the military to become an A-list celebrity bodyguard? What sort of celebrities have you worked with over the last 10 years?
Rita, Bella Hadid I was with for quite a while, Kendall Jenner, Dizzy Rascal. I doubled for Dave Bautista, which was a great job. Turned up at Luton Airport and they handed me this document. They said, okay, this is the gentleman who's coming in. Michael Jackson's on the front of the thing, right? It didn't register.
Yeah. What was the fear factor for him there? Was it just more about crazy fans?
Yeah, about exactly
Okay.
that.
Had you ever seen hysteria like that and any other A-lister you've done?
His level of that was quite astonishing, really.
Would you take a bullet for Michael Jackson? Simon, welcome to the show, mate.
How you doing?
Really good, really good. Let's roll our way back. Where did you grow up and how did you go from the military to become an A-list celebrity bodyguard?
So I grew up in Eastbourne, just not down the road from here, actually, just along the coast there.
Yeah.
I had a very normal upbringing, went to a state school, didn't particularly enjoy school, wasn't really my thing. When I was a lot younger, around the age of 13, I joined the Army Cadet Force. My dad was in it for many years as an adult instructor, so quite early on I got like a bit of a taste for wanting to have a go at that. So as soon as I was old enough, I joined that, and then I kind of started hanging around with my mates from the Army Cadets and not mates from school. School was a bit of a dead loss for me. I don't know why, but even when I was at school, I always felt like I was wasting my time. I know a lot of kids don't like school, but for me, I don't know. Even when I was that young, sort of 13, 14, 15, I just always felt like I was being held up by being at school. And if I look back at what's happened since, I probably could argue maybe I was, but so that's kind of how the military side of it started. I used to be a fat kid, so wasn't particularly fit. I went to join the army when I was, I can't remember exactly, but it was sort of the first opportunity I could, 16 and a half, whatever it was, and I was too fat to join. Back then, I think it's changed a bit now, but they did a height to weight, like a BMI height to weight, and I needed to be like 17 and a half foot tall to get in at my weight. So I knew that weren't gonna, there's only one way you can change that.
Yeah,
does that mean?
Yeah. So you mentioned there you didn't really like school, but you were overweight before getting there. Was there a part of you, when you look back now, was there any part of bullying going on there because of your size?
Yeah, it's a funny one that, because not really. And now normally, obviously at school, and I wasn't the coolest of kids neither, so it wasn't like I was fat but cool. But I seemed to still hang around with all the cool people. So no, not really. And I think fat kids are always funny, which helps. Yeah. People like funny people. Do you know what I mean? So I would say I was on the cusp of could have been being bullied if I wasn't funny, if you like. That's kind of what kept me in with everyone.
Did you take the mickey out yourself?
Yeah, still do today, all the time. Yeah.
Best way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's words, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Hi guys, just giving you the quick heads up. We've just launched a new VIP membership on Patreon. This gives you exclusive episodes, behind the scenes footage never seen before, VIP community chat, and early access to all episodes. If you love what we do, for the sake of a cheeky pint a month, £5 a month, come and support the channel. It allows us to grow even bigger. Yeah, and I'm known from, over the years, all different jobs I have, people will know me for doing that, just ripping people constantly, to be honest with you. Yeah.
In a funny, nice way. I don't ever mean anything sort of nicely, but I've always done that, from a very early age. Maybe that's where that come from. When I was a larger kid, that was my fitting in method, if you like. So I went to go and get a job, because when I got to 17 and ish, I left school. I mean, I left school a little bit early. My last year was a bit of a washout, and I started a bit of business then. In fact, my first business really was when I was about 8 years old. I bought a roll of Donald Duck stickers for like £6, £5, which was quite a lot of money back then. But I was selling them at, X amount, and I made quite a bit, £15 back. And that was the first time that I knew that if you buy something and sell it for more, you can make money. And I quite enjoyed that. I got shut down because the stickers were going all around the school. Kids were sticking them everywhere, and the caretaker got yump about it. So they took everything off me, and that was my first business. It lasted about a week and got shut down at the age of 8. But that's kind of where things escalated for me. Then when I couldn't join the army, I got a job. I did a little bit of painting and decorating, about 2 weeks on that. And it just wasn't for me at all. And I'm quite, if I know it's not for me, it's not for me. Very unlikely you'll change my mind. And then a mate of mine worked in an engineering factory in Eastbourne, and he said they're looking for a new apprentice. Do you fancy it? And because I knew a couple of the lads who worked there, I went and did that. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. Still wanted to be in the army, but it was a job. And I did that, and I got an apprenticeship. Went to college, and then I always used to like nice birds, and I always used to think myself, how can you be so like fat and not appealing, but like the page 3 girls? You know what I mean? How's that? It doesn't connect. Normally when you, like I was, you're not so fussy sort of thing. But I always was. And I wasn't prepared for some reason. I wasn't prepared to budge on that neither. And I remember laying in bed one night, when I was still living with my parents, and I probably would have been about 17, nearly 18. And I was thinking, something's got to change here. Like, I didn't even think about the military at that time. I didn't think about getting fit to go in the military. And all I thought about was getting fit so I can get a decent bed. And I thought something's got to change here. I need to. And I thought, well, the only thing what really needs to change is I need to lose weight.
What sort of weight? What sort of weight were you
at the time? I was about 44-inch waist.
Okay.
And stone wise, I was sort of like 18, 19, getting on for 20 stone.
As a 6-footer.
5'11", yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't like one of these people you got to take the door off to get me out of the house, but at the same time, I was overweight. And as you get older as well, I started driving. You can start drinking. Yeah. So driving now, you're doing less walking and whatever else you might have been doing, riding your bike. That's all gone out the window. Because you can drive, you can do the McDonald's drive-through at any time you want. Don't need your mum and dad. All these little things will add up. So it just got a mess. And then, I just remember thinking, I need to do something about this. So I think the next day, and this is what I always do, if I decide I'm doing something, it happens now. It doesn't happen Monday. It doesn't happen at the start of next year because it's nearly Christmas and all this nonsense. It happens now. And in the morning, I'm out the door and I ran a lamppost because that's all I could do at the time. Tracksuit bottoms and a T-shirt, which I think are actually my sister's tracksuit bottoms because that's sports equipment. I didn't have any of that. And I come back in. Now, I've been gone that quick. Obviously, my parents probably thought I was just putting the bins out or something. You know what I mean? I wasn't gone long enough for anyone to think that I started running. Do you know what I mean? But then I went 2 lampposts and 3 lampposts. And where my parents lived, I mean, looking back now, it's not really a hill, but at the top of what I considered to be a hill back then was some shops. And I always used to think, if I can run up to the shops, all the way up back, what I call a hill, that's a good achievement. Anyway, so it went on lamppost to lamppost, coming back in every day. When I ran up to the shops, I made it to the shops. Quite quickly, within a few days, I made it back down because it was downhill. So now I'm going up to the shops and back down again. And it was then when my parents, I think they realised that, he's actually going out and he's running. It's either that or I was banging one out in the garage, you know what I mean? Because I was coming in quite warm. So I think they put 2 and 2 together. Like.
What made you change everything? What made you get so big? A 44-inch waist as a 17-year-old kid, that's a big kid.
Yeah, it was just greed. For me, it was. I know people, larger people often say it's not greed or it's not this and it's not that. And maybe it's not for them. But for me, it was. It was greed. And eating the wrong food, but predominantly eating too much of it. And then, like I said, as I got a bit older, you started drinking. Now, if you mix food and drink, and especially I'm someone who can get weight off really quickly, but also that means it goes on quickly. So if I have a bit of a dodgy diet, I'm not too bad. If I just have a drink, I'm not too bad. If I have a drink and a dodgy diet, forget it.
Yeah.
And that's what started happening. And
you can't out-train a bad diet.
No, you can't. And that's impossible.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was growing up, so I'd never been through that. I never understood that I could put weight on and take it off quickly. I'd always just been fat, and that's the end of it. And also never experienced drinking. Back then, lager, don't touch stuff now, but, you know, pints of lager.
Yeah, you whack 10 pints in, plus a kebab
plus
and a load of food,
yeah. So it's first I realised that was no good food when I just banged on 3 inches on my waist on a weekend, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So
what roughly year are we talking? Are we talking early 90s here?
Late
90s, okay.
Late 90s, 98 maybe, something like that, 99. So I got fit. It's a little funny story, actually. I don't know if I often tell this one. I was in a nightclub in Eastbourne, and I just, the day before, or a couple of days before, I just seen my grandma. All my grandparents are gone now, but I just seen my grandma, and she saw me and she said, "God, blimey, you've lost a bit of weight." And that was the first time, because obviously your parents don't really notice it so much because they see you every day, and your sister and everything else. But my grandma hadn't seen me for a little while, and I thought, oh, that's the first time I thought, she's working. Because at the time I was so big that my clothes still hadn't really changed just by losing a bit of weight, and you know, I wasn't seeing my belt come in or anything like that as such. So I thought, oh, good, this is working. That kind of spurred me on a little bit. And then I lost a bit, carried on with it, lost a bit more. And one night I was in a club in Eastbourne, and there's this girl in there. Well, I can't remember what she really looks like now. That might be a saving grace, but it was a long time ago. But I used to say hello to her. I was very rapidly friend zoned in them days. So I used to talk to some nice birds, but I was always the fat, funny friend. Do you know what I mean? 3 Fs.
Yeah.
Right? And I can't remember what I said to her, but something was said. And she said, oh, maybe we should go for a coffee in the week, you know, go and get something to eat in the week or whatever. And I said, fuck off. I said, fuck off. Because I thought she was taking a piss at me. And I generally did. You know, it seems funny now, but I generally did. And a mate of mine was there. He's still in the army now. And walked off again. What did you do that for? I said, she's taking the piss out of me. I said, she's like taking the piss for wanting to go out. And he goes, no, she actually was being like honest, said, do you fancy going? And I was like, oh, like, first of all, what a dickhead, like, so I've blown that one. And secondly, I thought, I suppose I didn't really think about it. I suppose I lost a bit of weight and kind of so it went on. And then what also happened after that, like I mentioned about my mate there in the army. So all my friends in Eastbourne, they all joined the army around the same time, apart from me, because obviously I couldn't get in. All joined different regiments, so we weren't together or anything. But that particular friend I was just talking about, he's still in 2 Power as a captain now, so he went from a soldier. He's done really well. But he come home with his first, when he just joined his battalion back in 2000 or whenever it was, they'd just been to Northern Ireland. So he come back from Northern Ireland, and he'd been in the gym, and he had a load of money because it's a 6-month tour. I think he had 4 weeks off, and he was in town every day, loads of money in his pocket. You know, all the birds, all the time off, all the gym, and all the stuff that everyone wanted to do. And I just thought, that's what I want to be doing. I'm becoming in a stinky engineering factory every day doing you know, what I was doing. And that kind of spurred me on a little bit, because he managed to show me, without realising, what obviously there's a lot more goes with it when you work and everything else, but sort of like the other side of being in the military, if you like, is there is plus sides to it, if you like. So that really spurred me on as well. And then when I started dropping quite a lot of weight, I went down to about 13 stone in not very...
From what stone?
Nearly 20.
Nearly 20 stone
in something like 6 months.
My God.
Because what I started doing is when
That's huge.
Yeah.
Amount of weight
it's a lot.
loss.
And everyone said you won't keep it off because, you know, but I did. But again, when I'm doing something, I'm doing something. And what I did then, I started changing my food then, because I realised my food, I was running and stuff, and I joined the local council gym, which looking back now, you know, it's a dumbbell and a whatever, and there's nothing, but I used to get in there every day as well. Start seeing a little bit of a chest that you'd never seen before and all the rest of it. So that spurred me on, but I started changing my food, and I didn't know much about diet back then.
But no one did.
No.
You know, you're talking late 90s, there was no internet around. You go searching,
it's almost impossible to know.
You get a magazine to have a look, but no one knew.
Yeah, and even then you weren't sure if you're doing it right or how much and everything else. So I went down the whole salad and pasta route, you know, just sort of stuff that I knew for a fact was a bit less than eating pie and chips.
Yeah.
And I also probably wasn't eating enough. I realised that if I just cut right back and ate sort of pretty much, you know, looking back now, I probably would have been a lot stronger and fitter if I'd ate better than I did. But the way I did it with a sort of ended up almost being a sandwich a day and maybe a bit of pasta at night, and that was it, and been running for almost an hour. it's not the right way to do it now, and there's loads of better ways, and like you just said, you can find loads of better ways to do it now, especially on the internet. But back then it worked for me, and it got the job done. And then for some reason, when I thought, hold on a minute, why don't I join the army? Like, I'm more than going to be fit enough and the right size and everything else. So I went to join back up. I got underactive thyroid, so it wouldn't let me in. I was like, fucking joking. So at the time, where my cadet unit was, it was run. I'd left by, but it was run in a TA centre. I think it's all different now, reserves and all the rest of it, but I've lost touch a bit with what goes on, to be honest, with all the military. But and they had a TA unit in there, all signals. So I thought, I wonder if I can sneak in that, sort of
get your foot in the door.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I did. I managed to do it, and there's a civvy doctor, so he didn't really know the military sort of way of doing things. I'd never get away with it now. And I got in, and I spent, because it wasn't what I wanted to do at all, I spent about, I did training, and I spent the least amount of time I could there, and I got what I called full-time regular reserve service to the regular army, and I got posted out in Canada, just over a year. So
what year was this?
So that would have been, I always get this wrong, but I was going to say 2001 ish to 2. And we did all live firing out there, and all the blankets. So every battle group, I think it shut down this place now. Battersea is called British Army Training Unit Suffield, and used to be able to exercise. It was the only place in the world the British Army could exercise a whole battle group, and a whole battle group being artillery, tanks, armoured recce, mortars, infantry, armoured infantry in their warrior fighting vehicles. You could all fire. There's enough room out there to all fire as you would as a battle group live. So we used to do 2 weeks of that, and then 2 weeks of blank, which we fired blank fights called TESX, but you used to have like bobbles on you and on your helmet and everything else. So it's like laser, and there used to be a place called XCON where all the staff could monitor who was winning the battle, basically. And the battles went on for days and days and days. It was all blank ammunition, armoured vehicle. It was good fun. You learn a lot from that. In fact, you probably used to get more injuries, more casualties from that than we did live firing, because the stakes were higher, because you actually kind of got shot. So the guys got a bit more ramped up with it. So I did that anyway for just over a year. I come back, and Iraq was on. 2003 Iraq War was on. I went out there with 209 Signal Squadron, which was based in Gatwick at the time, which was 90 Mechanised Brigade. I'm not even sure if that's a thing anymore. And there was a job going within the brigade headquarters with a unit called 473 Battery, which is it's an artillery. Again, I think it's changed, all arms now, I think, but at the time it was mainly artillery. And he did a selection course. You could argue it was a stepping stone for SAS selection. A lot of the guys that did that course then went on to do that sort of thing. It's long range reconnaissance, target acquisition is what they did. But they had a 4-man team away from the battery and at the palace, who were looking after some American diplomats, I call them, or officials, some American officials. And one of the guys had a compassionate problem. He had to go back. So they went to the Signal Squadron and said, look, we really need someone to work on this, because we have to work as 4, we can't work as 3. And they wanted a corporal. I was only a soldier. They wanted a corporal. It went around 2 or 3 different corporals. No one really wanted the job, because we were sort of out in town, picking up people, visiting people, and getting in some potentially not nice situations, and the guys didn't want it. And a mate of mine who was a corporal, who was the last one to get asked, and he said, look, he said he didn't want to do it because I know someone who will, and he put my name in the hat. And within 2 days, I was with them, and I spent most of my time in Iraq with them, which we went into civilian clothing. And we was going out. The whole idea at the time was we was investigating sites of weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons. Didn't find anything. We went to the odd site where there was maybe a little bit of small amount of nuclear waste, but nothing to suggest there was nuclear weapons. So we did that all up and around the country, mainly in the south, but sometimes we'd go a bit further north. And that was quite interesting, learned a lot. And that was a little bit of a protection job, really. That's what it was for. We had a nuclear waste expert as well from the States, and he was a civilian, to come out and sort of check all this, anything we found. yeah, so that was kind of my thing, if you like, into security a little bit with that. Now, at the time, private security companies had just started working out in Iraq, and a mate of mine who used to be in the army had left, and I bumped into him at Basra Air Station out there. And because we was in civvies, he wasn't sure who I was working for. And he said, "Who are you working for?" I said, "I'm still in the army, mate." He goes, "You've got to get out. You've got to come and do this. I'm working for a private security company, blah, blah." Yeah, the money was like 5 or 6 times more than I was getting in the army. Conditions were better. Kit and equipment, you're just running people around, engineers around, or whatever it might have been at the time. At the same time, I got offered a place on the 473 battery course when we got back to the UK to do their selection and stay with the battery at Gatwick. And I was like, "Oh no," because I wanted to be a soldier, really. I hadn't been a soldier long. And I thought, I don't know, because he's getting all the money and that's quite an easy number. It's dangerous, but an easy number. Yeah. And then, I can go back and do this course and stay in the regular army and be a soldier, which is pretty much all my life as a child I wanted to do, really. So I spoke to one of the sergeant majors at 473 at the time, and he said, "Look," because I was quite young, I'd done quite a lot for my age by then already.
Roughly what sort of
23, age? 24.
Okay.
Yeah. He said, "What you can do is, why don't you take 2 years out, go and do your private security thing, buy a house," because obviously most people, especially soldiers, couldn't afford to buy a house. Buy a house, and he said, "You'll still only be, say, 26. Come back, we'll have you back on the course, and you carry on, but you've done a good thing by got a bit of a house behind you," sort of thing. So I thought, do you know what? That's like the best of both worlds. That appealed to me. Long story short, I got offered a job in London from this private security company. I never even had a CV because I'd never gone for a job before outside of the military sort of thing. And my mate who worked for the company done me a CV and banged it in. Don't know what was on it. I did find out later. Luckily, it was all right. It wasn't anything too. But yeah, I got called in for a meeting. But I was still in Iraq at the time. I can't remember how he got hold of me because I didn't have emails then. I don't really remember having a mobile phone, and we used to get phone cards where we would call out. So I can't remember how the company got hold of me, but I remember talking to the woman on the phone, and she said, "You're still in the military, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm still in Iraq." She goes, "We can't touch you. All the time you're in the military, we can't touch you. But there's a job for you if you're interested, but you have to leave." So I left it. I had to leave it another couple of months, whatever, get home, sign off, do my gardening leave, if you like, get out for, I think it was another 6 to 8 weeks before I was allowed to go to the office. And I went to the office in the end and got an interview. And it just so happened that the guy who was interviewing me was friends with a captain who I was working with in 473 out in Iraq. And he said, because you're quite young, he said, "Your CV is quite good for that age. Do you mind if I give this guy a call?" So I said, "No, it's fine." So he called him up. Anyway, 5 minutes after me walking out of the office, the guy I knew, he's already texted me saying, "Don't worry, you're going to get the job." Do you know what I mean? And by the time I got home, I was offered the job. So I went out to maybe a couple of weeks. It was quite fairly quick. A week or 2 weeks later, I had to go to Texas for a month.
So you were in the military for how many years in total?
Very little, three and a bit.
3 years.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And you did how many tours? You did Iraq?
I did Iraq, and I did Canada, for which was just over a year. So essentially, you could argue it's 2 because it's a 6-month tour normally.
And then you got this opportunity to jump out and get out and do. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I was young. I'd started with the company at 24.
And what was going through your mind at the time to go, you know what, I've dreamt about being in the military all my life, and all of a sudden I've got an opportunity? Were you thinking pound note and longer career at the time?
I think it wasn't pound note, obviously. Yeah. Because if it's the same money or less, you wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah. What sort of money were you on?
At the time, it was about 10 grand a month.
No, what at the time when you were in the army, roughly?
2 something. Because our signals,
what, 2 grand a month.
Yeah, 2, 3 or 2, 4.
Okay.
But also because I've been to Canada, you get an overseas allowance, and that allowance goes up slightly the longer you're away. So I'd already accumulated a year's worth of overseas allowance, which meant my overseas allowance in Iraq might have been a bit higher than someone's who hadn't already been away.
Yeah.
So I didn't, the money was all right for a soldier. I did no more than 2.5 grand.
And then this opportunity here led you into what sort of money?
That's 10, but it's tax free. I registered as a non-resident of the UK because we was outside the UK all the time. And when that happens, you have to go by the tax laws of the country you're living in. Well, Iraq at the time obviously didn't have any tax laws. So we was tax free. It meant I couldn't come back here for any more than 90 days a year, but you just chuck one holiday in the mix somewhere and, you was all right.
Yeah.
I flew out to Texas. I needed to get a DOD card, which is a US military ID card, because the first company I was working for was a company called KBR, a big oil company, American. And we had to meet this guy in a hotel and give him our passports. We thought we just could be out there for 24 hours. And he took our passports and he said, all right, I'll be back next Friday. So we were like, we've got nothing to do for a whole week. So we was out every day, hotels, out on it, yeah. Got these ID cards, flew back home, and like 2 days later, I was in Kuwait, waiting to go across the border again, picking up some firearms, picking up some soft skin vehicles and non-armoured 4x4s, and we were driving into Basra. There was 4 or 5 of us that went all together, and then I was just I remember being in Kuwait and I remember thinking, oh, what have I done? Like, is this, because I was quite young and I was just about to go across the border. I was on my own. We was all in our own vehicles on our own with weapons, and obviously in the army, you got all the support and the other people, all that round. And I just thought, well, you got 2 choices, you either say no thanks, going home, which is a waste of my time, waste of everyone else's time, because I should have said that long before. And you did have the option in the office when you went for the interviews. They showed you a video not long before that period of time. A company called Blackwater, which isn't around now, or it might be, but it's changed name, had 2 ex-US Navy SEALs working out there in Iraq as private security contractors, and they got in the north of the country. They got shot up in their vehicle, dragged through the streets, and hung from a flyover and set on fire in front of all the locals, 2 American guys. And that was all a video deal as well. And they used to show you that video in the office, say, look, this is the place that you're going to. This is what could happen. It's not, it's not definitely, but this is what you're, and if you don't fancy it, now's the time to say, sort of thing. So we'd gone through all that. For me, that wasn't a big deal. I'd just been out there in the military. For the guys who maybe hadn't, it might have played on their mind a little bit, a little bit more. So I didn't really care, to be honest, because I'd just been out there already. So that would have been the time to say, well, I was already in Kuwait now, so I just thought, just go and do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You could get booed off court, do you know what I mean? And that's the end of it. And I enjoyed it, I loved it, that job. And it just went from there with the private security. I did 2 years as a security contract for this oil company where we was out on the oil fields. I went up to Baghdad for quite a while as well, with the sort of senior management for the oil company. They had an office up there, and we was taking them around up there.
What were you doing for the oil company then?
Just protecting the workers.
So protecting the workers or protecting the top people?
So both. So down in the south where the oil fields were, they were kind of normal oil workers, and we'd have Gurkhas as well, ex Gurkhas, who would go out and do like static guarding on the sites, and then you'd have 2 of us would go out in a vehicle and just drive around the sites, just generally making sure that everyone's all right and doing what they should be. And obviously, if there's an incident, we'd shoot straight to it to help out. And you'd get about 4 cars of 2 guys in each out at any one time. So it wasn't, it wasn't kind of on your own.
And why protecting the people working there?
Just from the Iraqi, anyone who didn't want us to be there.
Right.
Just from being shot up. It was some of the sites we had a problem. I used to do one called Whiskey 64, which was a nighttime. It was a drilling oil rig, and we didn't have much. They just pushed berms up around it, and we had floodlighting, but it's a very temporary structure, temporary site, so there wasn't any fencing or anything, sort of any protection on it. We used to get pot shots at night through that because it was quite an easy target. But in general, down south, roadside bombs a little bit, but in general, it's compared to what I was getting in Baghdad, it was quite nice down south, to be honest. So we did that then, but the oil management was in Baghdad, because that's kind of where it's a bit like being in London for, it's where everything was. So we used to take them around to like the Ministry of Oil, to the Green Zone, to wherever they had meetings. And that, a lot of people got killed out in Baghdad around that time.
What was their fear then? Was their fear of getting kidnapped? What was their fear? The people you were protecting?
Just kidnapped or being killed.
Yeah.
I mean, kidnap was the big one for them because they were civilians. For private security contractors, you would normally had your head cut off. That was what they wanted to do. Whereas they would kidnap. Ultimately, you might get your head cut off as well. But for the civilians, they like to kidnap them and keep them for a little while at a time.
For a ransom.
Yeah, but it never really come to that. I don't know why they used to keep them for so long because most of them got killed.
Yeah.
So we did that. When I finished that, the contract was getting drawn down slightly. So the Baghdad office, if you like, got closed. So we all got dumped back down in Basra. And me and the lads who'd been up in Baghdad, we didn't really want to go back down there because, it's quite slightly different tempo in Baghdad, which we quite, was used to. Yeah. So just at that time, the company had just picked up a new contract for convoys. So you're not looking after people, you're looking after kit and equipment. And a private security company had it before the company that I worked for, but lost the contract to us because they kept getting wiped out. They were using soft-skin vehicles and they were getting ambushed. And when they were getting ambushed, they weren't literally wiping the whole team out. Yeah. I mean, all the expats, I think they used Iraqis on that job with them. Yeah. All the kit and equipment, all the Saudi drivers, Jordanian drivers, everyone was just getting wiped out. So they lost the contract. And at the time, my company bought some B6 armoured trucks, which were like Ford trucks, and we mounted a PKM on the back, machine gun.
You put a machine gun on the back of
the truck, yeah. So two Iraqis used to stand in the back with the machine guns.
Wow.
And they built like a box for them to stand in for protection, made out of sort of lead or whatever. And then we'd be in the front. And so I had two Iraqis in the back and an Iraqi driver, and I'd be in the front with the Iraqi driver. We used to have 4 gun trucks per team, and then we'd go out to the borders. So we go down to Kuwait again, or we go out to Jordan. Jordan was my main one because I was in Baghdad. So we used to go out there at the Western Corridor and pick up anything that was coming in. It's all to aid the country. It's all to help the country, medical supplies and school equipment and all this sort of thing. But then they had a new contract with the Japanese government, and they asked if we'd go on to that. And it is big electronical substations which were planted around Baghdad, and they were to give power back to Baghdad again. So we said we'd do it, and we all had trackers and responders on our vehicles. So if we ever got hit, we used to press the button and it'd send an instant signal off to say you've been hit, you're in the contact, and they'd call you back asking if you're all right and do you need help, do you need medevac, what's going on. But that also told them where he was all the time, the speed we was travelling, and all through the GPS. Now, these substations we were bringing in had these porcelain pots on them at the top. And if we went over, I think it was like 10k an hour, they crack, or they had a chance of cracking. So the Japanese said, whatever you do, you've got to bring these things in, but it's 10 to 12k maximum an hour. So, well, you try and get down these main supply routes, you try and get down as quick as possible because you always get whacked on them because you can't come off them because of the size of the trucks you're escorting. So you just have to take the hit every time. So we didn't fancy doing 10k an hour, like that. So they gave us 6 gun trucks instead of 4, more to blow up. It didn't make a lot of difference. But also what would happen is the Japanese would get on the phone every 5 minutes. If we hiked the speed up a little bit, you're going too fast, you've got to slow down, you're going too fast, because they could see everything we were doing. So we did that, dropped in Baghdad, and we bring 3 or 4 in at a time. And we always got hit on that. Roadside bombs was the main one. If we weren't going to the border to pick up, when you was going there, because you wasn't escorting anything, you could just shoot straight down there. But coming back, I mean, one time we got IED'd in 3 times in 30 minutes.
IED?
Roadside bomb, improvised explosive device. Yeah, it hit the vehicle three times, literally one after another. And we just thought, we got to keep going forward. We can't go back. So if there's any more, we just got, there's not a lot we can do about it. And then the place that monitors the transponders and helps you if you need help, they called us in and said, look, you can't move anymore. We had to go to a US Marine outpost and sit there for about 2 or 3 days. We had to wait for tyres to come back down, and we used to get Iraqis to come down and bring them down in their cars because they were least conspicuous. Fix all the vehicles, like antennas and all the bits and pieces, so we could get on the road again to get to the border. But the problem with it was once you had a slot for your stuff to come across the border, it come across. So if you weren't there, it'd sit, Iraq side, and it'd just everything gets stolen and taken off. So when lots of Baghdad or other parts of the country was shut down and said there was no move for Westerners, or, it's too dangerous, we still had to go out because, we weren't looking after life, we was looking after kit. Whereas the job I had previously, if there'd been a couple of bombs gone off in the middle of Baghdad, they'd say, right, no one's going out today, stay away from it. But that job, you was always out, and it was never a case of always small arms. Or, my always thing with, if it got hit by a roadside bomb, my first thing would always be, I just hope I don't hear any small arms fire or RPG, because it's now turned into an ambush and not just a roadside bomb.
Yeah. Did you ever have the fear for your life out there?
Every day.
Every day, yeah.
Sometimes more than others. There's a few times in my life where, so you're kind of scared all the time, especially on convoys. You don't realise. And that was the time actually where I was eating shit all the time, and I didn't put any weight on, just sitting in the car. You know what I mean? Because I shit myself all the time. But that fear, it changes into the norm.
Yeah.
And you don't really notice there anymore, and you just get on with the job. But worse than that, there has been a few times in my life where I've gone, you fucking idiot. You got yourself in this place. You took this job. Like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? Because it's been that close to something happening. Not many. Once with the army, once or twice with private security, and that kind of quickly passes, to be honest. But yeah, there's a couple of times I've had a word with myself going, you've got no one else to blame. That's what I always used to think. You've created all this yourself. Yeah. So yeah, being scared is not a thing. Being scared, it's an emotion. It's the same as being happy. It's the same as, but the point is you like being happy, you don't like being scared, but it's still an emotion. More scared for longer periods of time, more you get used to it. Obviously, people struggle with it a lot because they don't get scared very often. Some people might only get scared twice in their whole life. But working in places like that, you do get scared. No one knows you're scared. One of the things for me when I was scared, I always used to laugh. So when it was always going wrong, I just laugh because I just think, what a bollock situation this is. You know what I mean? And it used to tickle me. It didn't, essentially, if you know what I mean. I didn't find it funny, especially if people are getting cut up and hit and everything else. But I don't know why I always used to laugh, but it always used to make me laugh sometimes. I used to think, if anyone looking at me, it must look like I'm enjoying myself. Do you know what I mean?
Or you're a complete nutter.
Yeah, and not well, yeah. But I didn't, and everyone was just as scared as the next bloke. And you learn that probably in the military as well. When you're absolutely shitting yourself doing something and you look around, you think, why is no one else shitting themselves? They are, everyone is. It's just, when they look at me, I probably don't look like I am. Do you know what I mean? But, and you just learn to live with that.
Did you have the fear of dying?
No one wants to die, right? This is my thing. No one wants to die. It's quite, unfortunately, particularly 2006 in Iraq, it's quite possible it could happen. Lost a lot of people that I knew as well around that time. It was probably one of the worst years out there for people being killed. So to think it's not going to be you, I think silly, because it quite easily could be in a position like that. I always said, I'm not scared of dying, but that being said, I don't want to die any earlier than what I'm meant to. Do you know what I mean? I would never put myself in a place, kill me, I'm not bothered. I'm not like that. But the actual thought of dying is to make you laugh. I like change. What's dying? I enjoy change. I like seeing what's next. And I just say it's change. It's change. And it's quite a deep one. Life after death, is there, isn't there, and all the rest of it. My personal opinion on it is, do you remember a year before you was born what you was doing? Do you remember that? Okay, no, exactly. There you go. That's it. And I might be wrong. Don't get me wrong. I might be wrong. I don't know. But that's my personal opinion. That's because I've only got that to go by because I've done that bit. I know what that was like. I can tell you what it was like. We all can, because we've all been there. I haven't been the other end of it. And I just think the only thing I've got to go by is what I was before I was alive, which I was dead then, you could argue. So no, I wasn't scared. There was times you take a deep breath before you're about to do something. If the rounds were coming in, you've got to run across a road or run across a gap where you know something could happen. But even then, I used to just think, I can't not do this now. I've got to do this.
You're so far in.
Yeah, it just and it kind of like there's no. You can't just sit there and put your weapon down and just start shouting for your mum. Do you know what I mean? You just do it and just hope for it's not you that day. And do you know what? For me, particularly in the military, because it was all new to me then, getting stuck in, if you like, I always thought, do you know what? I'd rather be shot, actually, than not do this now. Because all my life I wanted to do it. I owed it to myself to do it. Everyone around me was relying on me, as I was them. You know, your military training, even the years as an army cadet, when you're running around doing it, then wondering what it's really like to have someone shooting back. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, I thought I'd rather be shot now than me going, no, I'm not doing this and walk off, because my whole life's just been a farce otherwise, really. And that used to be, it doesn't mean so I wanted to be shot, obviously, but yeah, that's the way I just went with it a lot of the times. Just get on with it. Just you got to take action and do it now. Speed is a big thing. Any military person will tell you, speed is a big thing when you're doing something, is to try and execute things quickly. Speed saves lives, but equally when you're talking with firearms, you've got to be accurate as well. There's no point in sacrificing accuracy for speed if you're not hitting target. And again, back then, my uncle actually was X-22 SAS back in the 80s, like 70s, 80s. And when Iraq started, so because I was quite young, I said to him, "Don't you ever fancy going back out there and being a project coordinator?" So he said, "Listen," he said, I've had quite a lot of offers to go out there and run certain bits and pieces," but he goes, "I don't want to do it." I mean, I don't know how old he was back then, maybe in his 40s or whatever. And he said, "But it's gone now for me." And he goes, "Do you know what? If anything," he goes, I'm not quick enough. Yeah. You know, I don't move as fast as I used to. And I always used to, back then, I used to think, what's he mean by that? You know, and of course, as I've got older, I realise now exactly what he means. You don't get in and out of vehicles as quick as I used to back then. You know, I worry more about things like being shot, certainly in the early days, or being blown up. I'm not saying I didn't care about it. It's always in my mind, but I was far more not bothered about it than I would be if I went to do that today, because you change as you get older.
What were the rules about you carrying guns out there? And also the rules about you letting fire off first.
Yeah, there weren't any.
There wasn't?
Not really. There weren't any. I mean, you can't drive around town cold-heartedly killing. Do you know what I mean? But quite often so when you're in the military, you fire, quite often you'll fire before you get fired upon, because if you're attacking something, you don't want them to fire, but you know. For us, we weren't attacking, we was protecting. Whether it was personal kit, we was protecting. So really, the bottom line was we was only allowed to use the firearms for protection. But also, we had a job to do. Our job wasn't to go out hunting people. Our job was to get this kit and equipment in safe. So when people used to attack us, the first we would hear of them anyway half the time was because they were shooting at us. So it's very unlikely that we would ever shoot first, because they were a bit more clever than that. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't be standing in front of us waiting to do it. We'd be hidden. So all the times that we ever fired, it's always because if we hadn't, I wouldn't be here sitting here doing this with you today. Do you know what I mean? There's a few occasions like that. And many others wouldn't be around now. So yeah, but in terms of was there any sort of like card or no, but you had to still be careful. You know, if you shot someone in the middle of Baghdad and it wasn't just, and maybe it turned out it was a woman, didn't have a firearm, that's murder. You're going to get, you'll get arrested, and you're still under Iraqi law as private security. You wasn't protected by the British government. If you did something like that and the Iraqis arrested you, then you was going in. If you was a serving, military, then it was a bit different.
You get a bit more protection
there, yeah. But for us, we were still under their thing. But I can always say, I never fired, and I can honestly say, I never fired for when I didn't need to. I know some people could get a little bit excited at times. But I never fired a bean if I didn't need to, because I just couldn't be asked.
When would you start firing?
One of the things it's quite difficult to get used to sometimes is, so you have different types of weaponry in the army. Obviously, there's a lot, but in private security, you get a little bit more than what you'd normally expect. So quite often we had normal assault rifles, we had a pistol, but then we'd have some sort of belt-fed machine gun. A lot of the weapons we had in Iraq, I'll talk about Afghanistan in a minute, but in Iraq, it was local weapons. So it was AK-47s and locally sourced weapons, PKMs, RPKs, which were, PKM was like a belt-fed machine gun. good bit of kit. Didn't quite often it works rather than not. You know, it was all right. Yeah, some of the AKs a bit iffy.
Yeah.
So it's difficult because you can't always see what you're shooting at. And I didn't like to shoot. If you got a belt-fed machine gun, it's an area weapon, right? So it's not for one particular bloke. Quite often it'd be used while you may be extracting, or it's getting that weight of fire down to keep the enemy's head down while you're doing something, whatever that might be, right? So it's not a one-on-one, if you like. It's an area weapon. A high rate of fire. Rounds are quite often bigger, not always, but depending on what you're using, and it spread the area quite well. When you're using your rifle, your normal assault rifle, it can be used like that, but equally, you try and get a kill out of it if you're firing it to a certain extent. And I was always conscious that, again, in the army, it's a bit different. Private security, I only had a certain amount of magazines on me, like 10, I think I used to carry, which is quite a lot. And everyone carried roughly the same or more.
And how many in each
20.
magazine? Okay.
We had a few other bits. I had some HE grenades and smoke, quite a lot of smoke everywhere, all in the doors of the vehicle, all in your kit. Anywhere you could get smoke, there was smoke. Yeah. So we had a few extra luxuries. But yeah, I was always careful because a lot of the places, especially if you was out on the convoys and you was out on one of the main MSRs, you could be hours from any help. Like no buildings, nothing, and you might get the odd US convoy that comes past, but the next US Marine outpost was another hour down the road. So if you was fighting there from an ambush, and for anti-ambush drills, so that means if you're being ambushed, the drill you do to try and safely get out of it, it does require quite a weight of fire, and for quite a long period of time, and especially there's no cover. So you've got to drive into the distance and out the distance to not be seen there, so, but then you've got the juggling act of conserving ammunition because you haven't got any resupply. Yeah. And if you get whacked then, I always used to say to the guys, we've got to be careful because we're still 5 hours away from home. In an hour's time, if we get whacked again, we're going to spit at them. We've got nothing left here. So it's a juggling act. There's a lot of things like that with private security, but you'd never have to think of in the military because the support's constantly air cover with the military. We never get air cover. We'd get air cover for medevac if they weren't busy. But quite often if people got hit, we'd have to patch them up and take them to the local military base where they would sort of take them in their med centre and look after them because we couldn't get a helicopter to us. And the military were good for that. They looked after us as much as they could, but they had their own people to worry about first. So that went on. That went on for 3 years for me, or messing around different parts of Iraq. I did a couple of different contracts on top of that, what I've just spoke about, but all the same sort of stuff. And I thought I want to change. I was on convoys and I just thought because it's quite rough, I thought the day I wake up and I don't want to be here anymore, I'm going to, that's me done. I'm going to leave. And one morning I'd just come back off leave. I'd had leave and I did a week. I was like, I just don't want to, there's no interest. And the thing is with it is those places, when it all goes wrong, you've got to be 110% up for it. And if you're not, one, you might get yourself killed, but also it's not fair on the other lads. Everyone depends on everyone being right up for it. And when you're kind of in a place where you don't really want to be there, or you're not so arsed, or, you could let it slip. I managed to keep enough interest until I left to be good while I was working. But when I was back, I wasn't interested, if you like, because, I found it a bit more relaxing. So I knew it was time for me to go. I left, told the office in London that I wanted to come back. They said, no problem. I had a bit of time off, and then I flew out to Afghanistan and worked on a job with HMRC, UK HMRC, out in Afghanistan. I did a couple of years out there. I was training the Afghan drugs police, and then
it was training the Afghan drugs police.
Okay. Yeah. And then so I had the people I was looking after. That was a protection, personal protection job. So we had HMRC officers from the UK, like from Dover, from Heathrow, from Edinburgh Airport, from all the airports. One of them was a cutter commander on a Coast Guard ship. And they all volunteered to do their tour of Afghanistan. And the Afghan drugs police were being trained, but then they would when they went to work, we had to go out with the HMRC officers and kind of mentor what they were doing and make sure they were doing things properly, documenting things properly. So we used to fly up and down. We had our own plane. We used to fly up and down the whole country, going to airports, city gate checkpoints, which were the main routes into each city in Afghanistan.
And I'm taking this is heroin, right? Coming from Afghanistan.
Yeah. It's all pretty much heroin. Yeah. It's loads of fines. Half the country at the time was corrupt. Some did good jobs. All the tools would go missing. Yeah. You give them a full complement of tools for digging around vehicles and trying to find stuff, and within 3 weeks, there's one screwdriver left. Do you know what I mean? Because half it's probably at home in their shed or whatever. It's all very much like that out there. I remember one time there was a guy who was a private security contractor actually, but he was South African, I think. Nothing to do with us. We worked for the British Embassy, the British FCA contract, so he wouldn't have got on it. But he had some protein tubs of what wasn't protein, let's put it like that. And they found him at the Kabul airport. He was flying into Dubai, dropping these 2 tubs off.
Into Dubai?
Yeah.
What was in it? Cocaine?
No, heroin. Neat, heroin. So it's worth fortune.
Into Dubai?
Yeah. Yeah, and then he was flying from there back home to South Africa.
Away, right?
Yeah, instant. Yeah.
What was he thinking?
Yeah, I mean, people have been found a leaf of cannabis in between their record bags. You know what I mean? And been banged up for 10 years there for that. Yeah. So we got asked to go down because he was a Westerner. We got asked to go down. It's of an evening, kind of monitor how the Afghan police, drugs police, were dealing with him and processing him, if you like. And we got down there, and I went in with the guy I was with at the time, and he looked at me straight away. He goes, I don't know what he's done, but he's definitely done something wrong, because obviously these people looking at, they know straight away.
Yeah.
All our customs officers see it every day. Yeah. So we went to speak to him, and he said, he goes, oh no, he goes, this is just protein. And he licked his finger and put it in his mouth, and immediately overdosed on it, because obviously it wasn't.
Yeah.
So we was like, oh, fucking, sit down, you fucking idiot. So we're going to need a doctor. Anyway, he weren't good for a little while, but we didn't have to sort of take him away or anything. And then in the end, so obviously he'd done the work for us, really. He didn't have to check much. Yeah. And he got taken away by the drugs police, thrown into the cells in the drugs police station in Kabul. I think a couple of days later we went down there, because we used to go to this police station quite a bit, because it's where their main centre for the drugs police. And in there, you see all the people in there shackled up, ankles, wrists, with the full sort of, I don't know what it's called, I'm going to say pyjamas, but it's not, is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The
full,
baggy clothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes some sort of headwear. But then also, when they moved across the forecourt to go anywhere, they were chained again to each other. So if one ran, sort of thing, they'd all be running. And he was just lumped in like that with everyone else, which, why shouldn't he be? I suppose you break the law in that country, and that's what it is. And then he got sentenced. I can't remember what he got, but it was a long time in Policharki prison, where there was 1 or 2 other Westerners in that prison at the time for various things.
In Afghanistan,
Kabul. Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably still there now, because it's not like here where you get 10 and do half or whatever. There's no
brutal.
No tax out there. And I didn't go, but some of the guys went with a lawyer or solicitor from the British Embassy. I think at the time, the South African Embassy didn't have a very big stamp out there, so they were very restricted to what they could do. So I think we helped out as much as we could to sort of just, not to get him off, because obviously what he'd done, it was, bang to rights, but just to try and check on the welfare side of it a little bit. But I used to do executions in that prison. Everyone used to see it. In the winter, a lot of people don't know, but in the north and Kabul, snow. Yeah. It's freezing. Yeah. You get thrown an extra blanket, maybe, eating slop, eating drool. It's just, shit. But,
do you think he's still banged up now?
I think so, yeah, because, so that was 2007. No, it might not be.
15 years, 16 years.
If you're still alive, yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing with that, isn't it? Is even if you can make it comfortable, can you get your head around doing, it's not a normal prison, that.
No.
So I did that job for 2 years. That was quite quite
Did you enjoy
good.
that? Did you enjoy that bit?
Yeah, I used to like, so we had 3 vehicles. We used to drive them on the back of a C-130, which is a transport aircraft, if you like, but it was a civilian one. It wasn't a military one, run by some South African company at the time. But the thing kept falling to bits all the time, and it was down more than it was up. So we got lucky enough, because of the job he was doing, the military offered to let us use their aircraft, obviously operated by them. So we used to use the Special Forces flight quite a lot, and we used to just be able to chuck the vehicles on the back, go and jump on the back, get your head down, fly here, fly you wherever around the country. They'd land anywhere in the thing, land on a rock surface or on a MSR even if you needed them to.
What's the MSR?
Main supply route, so like a free lane dual carriageway, if you like. So that was, we had all the good kit and equipment. The weapons weren't local; they were shipped in for same as what the police use actually, but automatic ones we had, not semi. We had all the right bits, the medical packages and the medical equipment, because it was a Foreign Commonwealth Office contract. We had all the everything that you'd expect to get on something like that. So that was a good job.
Were they trying to cut down to stop all the poppy fields in Afghan?
Yeah, I think that was
burn them all down.
It was never going to happen.
No,
that was the plan. And the problem is, too many people were in on it.
Yeah.
So like literally,
everyone will be taking bungs left, right, and centre.
Yeah. It's massively like that out there. It's always like that out there. So you're fighting a losing battle, really. I'm not really sure what the agenda behind why we stayed for so long and what they actually thought they were going to do, because I only did 2 years there, and it's obvious to me that it weren't going to happen. So I'm sure it must have been to them. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, that's that in it. But it was good for me because I had a good time. Made a load of money again. I forgot to say, I always do this. I forgot something. So I was in Afghanistan for about a year, and I'd just gone home on leave. We used to do 8 on, 4 off. And I just got home.
8 weeks on,
8 weeks on, 4 weeks off. Yeah. But we used to have to go on holiday a little bit because of the 90-day thing. Yeah. So before we was 9 and 3, we was in it. Then we went 8 and 4. It took us out of it a little bit. So I used to go like Mexico or Brazil or Thailand, all the normal places, for a week, 10 days before. But one time I come home, and I was coming home for the full 4 months because I'd already done my bit out of the country. And a mate of mine who was on one of the teams in Afghan with me happened to have the same leave, and he lived in Edinburgh. He said, why don't you come up to Edinburgh, have a couple of nights out in the piss or whatever. And at the time, I don't think I'd ever been up there. So I said, I'll do that. So I got a flight, went up there. I was only up there first night, and I got a call from someone back down there. He said, Simon, are you available to work tomorrow or the day after? I said, well, not really. I'm on leave, like, from Afghanistan. What is it? I said, can you come down to London and look after someone in London? So I said, yeah, well, I kind of wanted to, because I hadn't worked in the UK properly at the time. But then I thought, I'm on leave. I don't really want to be doing this. And then, so I said, look, I'm on leave from Afghanistan. I said, if you really need me, because I'd rather not. And left it at that. And then they rang me back about 10 minutes later. He said, look, are you sure you can't do it? Blah, blah, blah. I said, give me a minute. I said to my mate about it. I said, look, I feel a bit bad as well. I've only been here like 12 hours and I'm going to have to go back down tomorrow morning. He said, just do it. And he said, like, well, I said, then, you've always said you fancied trying it in London. Just go and do it. It's 10 days, I think, or 2 weeks. Can't remember what it was now. But so I said to the bloke, I said, look, I'll come and do it. What have we got to do? He said, just need to be at Luton airport with all your kit, blah, 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 blah. So I said, look, I'm in Edinburgh at the moment. I thought, I can do it. I'll do it. So my mate said to me, he said, well, obviously you've got to go in the morning now. I'll rebook my flight. He said, why don't we just have one night out at least? Do you know what I mean?
As you do.
As you do, yeah. Come away. And I agreed. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to for him as well. So I come up to see him. Yeah. And we had a night out, and I got to the airport the next day, all bent out of shape, and said to the woman behind us, what time's the flight? She went, it's gone. I was like, fucking hell. So what do you mean it's gone? And I was right on the time restraint anyway, as it was. She goes, the time you got there is the time it takes off, not the time you board. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, okay, that's clearly my fault then. I said, well, there's another flight. Anything you can get me on at all, blah, blah. Anyway, BA put me on one, which was like 40 minutes later. I'd pay more money for it and all that. And I looked at it and I thought, I haven't got time. Because at the time I lived in Eastbourne. So I thought, I haven't got time to land in Heathrow, get a train down to Eastbourne, get all my kit, get back up and go to Luton. So I landed straight down the shops, bought all the suit and all the bits, shoes, everything, uncomfortable as fuck, so brand new.
Yeah.
Shirt out the packet, the lines down the front, nothing to write, all that, right? Turned up at Luton Airport, went in the bathroom there to put it all on, tied myself up, and sat down in this room with a few other people who I didn't know at the time. And they handed me this document. They said, okay, this is the gentleman who's coming in.
So you didn't know before?
No, they wouldn't tell me. They wouldn't tell me who it was. In the next hour. So I looked at it, and Michael Jackson's on the front of the thing, right? It didn't register.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, Michael Jackson's on the front. When I open this up, I'll see who it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's him all the way through. I'm thinking, nah. And then someone's gone this. So I said, is it actually? He's gone, yeah. I'm like, all right. And I just thought, all right, and that's what it is then. I didn't appreciate that job at all. I've got to be honest, because it was just another job to me.
Yeah.
I just wanted, I liked being a bodyguard back then. I enjoyed the job. It's just me doing my work, if you like. So I didn't really fully appreciate it. And also, it wasn't much social media or anything like that. I got about 6 or 7 photos. That's it from my time with him, because there wasn't. It's not like it is now. I think it was in the Sun newspaper. It was on MTV, news at 10 or whatever. Briefly. But that's about it, because there just wasn't any of this Daily Mail online and all the other stuff that there is. So yeah, I ended up doing just short of 2 weeks with him, which for my first job in London was an eye opener. Yeah. Just with the amount of people surrounding him.
What was the fear factor for him there? Was it just more about crazy fans?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That. Yeah.
There wasn't death threats and stuff, was there?
Not at the time the other thing that didn't help us a little bit is I don't think he'd been to the UK for quite a significant amount of time before that time when I was in 2006. Yeah. We took him to the World Music Awards. There was 6 of us on the job, but his fan base flying from all over the world to some of them were booking out hotels rooms to be in the same hotel so they can be in the lobby and all this sort of thing. So it's very hectic. Crowd build-up was by far the worst. It's almost such an infringement on his life to be able to move him around.
What was he like? Did you get to chat to him? What sort of size was he? Tiny little bloke?
Briefly, not massively.
Kind? Was he a good bloke?
My personal opinion was nice enough guy. Didn't have much to say. But in the fact that he was quiet, he would if you was talking to him behind a wall, you'd probably think he's a lot younger than he was. Let's put it like that. Yeah. He was quite young in his head. Some of the things he would say and do. Wasn't nasty or anything like that, but he'd say some things that maybe you'd expect to hear from a younger person. Let's put it like that. But so many people around him as well. In terms of, compared to all the other people I've looked after, he would have been the least interaction. Right. He had 5 security, plus he had his American security with him, plus his manager, his stepmom, or what, all these different people. We had the kids with us as well. Yeah. So it's just a huge thing. But yeah, I had the odd day where I had a chat with him. Nothing particular more about what we was going to be doing that day, probably. But I didn't appreciate the job until a lot later, when people sort of said to me it's quite a thing, and obviously when he died and everything else, and I look back at it, for a bodyguard, it's quite a good one to do. Do you know what I mean?
Like the biggest star in the world, on the planet.
If you want to do an A-lister, that's the one, isn't it?
That's the one to get for your first gig.
Yeah, exactly. And it was my first job in London as well. Yeah. And it's funny because I kind of did that with everything else. My first job was out in Iraq at an early age. I'll talk about acting a little bit as well, and I doubled for Dave Bautista, which was a great job. And again, I didn't really realise what I was doing there. Yeah. Now I look back at that, I think, God, that's good.
Is that what you did? You were double for Dave?
I did in a movie, yeah. I've done quite a bit of stuff like that. That's kind of what I do now. But,
so what was your day-to-day there with like Michael Jackson? For those 2 weeks, how hectic was it? Were you in England, you were allowed to carry?
Nah.
You're not allowed to carry nothing? What were you looking out for?
So we stayed in Bayswater at the time. We didn't move him around that much, actually. We went to the theatre with the kids. We went to the World Music Awards. He went to the Guinness Book of Records one day. I can't remember what he got it for, but he got mentioned. He got a Guinness Book of Records thing at one stage. We took him out one night to get his outfit for World Music Awards, but we had to do that at 12 o'clock at night. We shut Top Shop down on Oxford Street and opened it up just for him to go around it at like midnight, 1 a.m. So we did that. Couple of dinners in the evening, and that was it. Because there's no let's go for a walk in the park.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, I'm just going to go to, I fancy having a quick look in Nike or something. You know, it's too much of a hassle. You can't do it. So everything was well scheduled.
Had you ever seen hysteria like that and any other A-lister you've done?
On a smaller scale, yeah. Not on that biggest, not on that so many. You know, I've had build up of fans and people not being able to move around freely. I've had all that, but his level of that was quite astonishing, really. Yeah. And there probably will never be like anyone like that again now, because the whole celebrity scene's changed very much now with social media and everything else compared to what it was back in those days. It took a lot of managing. You know, I could never have done that job on my own. There's no way. I think it was about, we had 1 female, 4 males, 5, 6, about 7 of us on it altogether, if you include the American guys he brought over with him.
So give me an example. What would you do? You jumping in and out of the car, open the door for him, you're keeping an eye out wherever he's walking. Are you in front of him, behind him? You're looking out for any nutters coming after him?
He'd have a bodyguard. So he had his American bodyguard with him.
Yep.
He had another one of us with him, not me, but one of the English guys. And then he'd have 4 of us. It's called personal escort section, and you're basically sort of around him, not too close, but just to try and keep a relatively sterile area for him to be able to walk around. And that was how we moved. To be honest with you, we could have done with more. Even that wasn't, I didn't feel at times. We were at some places we went, I felt like we could have done with 2 or 3 more. But it's hectic and we got away with it.
Yeah.
You know, and I learned quite a lot. I was 26 then, so I was quite young.
Isn't it funny you're just thrown into the mix with 5 or 6 people you don't even know?
I know,
you're going, right, we're all together, we're doing the body, like...
I mean, the stuff you do, it's... Your training and stuff everyone should have done in the past, so it's kind of similar. So it's, although you don't know anyone, everyone should still kind of know the job, if you know what I mean. You're not totally blind. Sometimes you adjust things so it suits everybody and everybody knows, but you shouldn't be on a job like that, and all the stuff you've got to do, you're totally alien to it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that bad. It's a bit like being in the military. If you talk to another soldier, there's certain stuff, don't matter what regiment you're going to be in, every soldier knows that, you know, that part of it.
So how would you react if someone come at him, punching him, wanted to go after him, or you saw someone with a gun? Would you take a bullet for Michael Jackson?
It's always a good question, isn't it? Because when people talk about bodyguards, they always think, you know, would you take a bullet for someone, or you're silly if you do take a bullet for someone. My answer to that is not just Michael Jackson, but anyone I've looked after. To me, they're all the same. Even though they're not in terms of level, maybe wealth or whatever. But to me, if I'm looking after someone, if you're paying me to look after you, it makes no difference to me who I'm looking after. I look after you. That's what you're paying me for. And if there's something to be, if there's shots to be fired or a gun to be, my first thing would be is not I got to jump in front to be a hero or get hit, but it'd be I've got to protect this person I'm with. And I always used to think that. Not because I like them, not because they've got a family and I haven't, so who cares, or nothing like that. It's because that's my job to do. I've only got one job to do here, and if I don't do that, that makes me a pretty shit bodyguard. And I always used to think that. So you end up doing things that can put you in harm's way, but not necessarily realising that you're doing that. Quite often when I was working, I used to move the people I was looking after, not move other, you know, foreign people I don't know, because it's often a lot easier. If I could see something maybe going to happen, or, you know, but from afar, I just moved the person because that person was quite happy with me touching them. They know me already. You haven't got that confrontation of what you're doing. It's just an easier way of doing it. And I wouldn't be moving them violently. No, I'd literally just usher them to one side. And quite often that would have been enough. Michael Jackson was different. There's too many people around him constantly. People trying to push through us, people trying to get to him, people coming in underneath your legs, trying to crawl up. It's all like that. I mean, it's mental, but so it's a bit different. You know, it's a little bit different. And you've got to be careful how you react. Don't carry firearms, don't carry any sort of weapon at all. You've got your hands and that's it. And even your hands have got restrictions on them. You know, you can't just go around smashing people on the nose just because they pushed your shoulder out the way or whatever. So you've got to be very careful. But that was a hectic job.
Who's allowed to carry guns as bodyguards in the UK?
Police.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
UK
so
police
a copper
officers.
who's working can come off work and they get employed wearing a suit as a private job as well?
But you can't carry in.
They can't.
No, he's got to be, because the police, for starters, they don't take the weapons home. So they'll be locked up at a police station somewhere.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So
there must be some old bill. There must be some old
there will be someone out there. I mean, I don't know much about things like the nuclear capability.
Yeah.
People who've got keys and got, I'm sure there is. I'm sure some do take them home. But it's not the normal thing that the guy who stands outside of 10 Downing Street chucks his pistol and his assault rifle in his glove box and drives home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That wouldn't be normal. So though they can all carry, they can't go and buy their own or anything like that and be allowed to carry just because they're going shopping with missus and fancy taking it. Do you know what I mean? It don't work like that. Not in this country. It does in other places where you do need a license, but they're not that difficult to get. In this country, it's a no-no.
And did that raise your profile with the Michael Jackson thing there when you come back to England to go, you know what, I want to be a bodyguard in England now rather than going abroad?
Not really, because I didn't really use it. I didn't really used to tell anyone much about it.
Okay.
And also I went back to Afghanistan for about a year. And then I decided I wanted to leave that. And mainly because they were talking about scaling the team down. Yeah. But also I've been away for a long time. I've been in Canada, I've been in the army, and then I've done 5 years all in all, 5, 6, 7, getting on for 8 years by the time. I was thinking, because I started so early, my 20 years old, I went from a fat kid and not going out a lot and couldn't get a bird to when I sorted that out, I've gone and taken myself out in the mix and put myself in another country.
Yeah. So you miss your 20s, really?
Yeah, I never really experienced it. And although I really enjoyed what I was doing there, and I don't regret it, and I'm actually glad I did all that as early as I did. I did miss all that, going out and, sort of thing. Went on, like I said, because we used to go away for a week. A lot of the lads who were non-resident as well, we used to go together. So you did experience a bit of party, if you like. But for going out weekends in the UK and all that, I never experienced any of that. So I thought it was time for me to come back. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. There were some UK prison officers working at the British Embassy in Kabul at the time. And I spoke to one of them and I thought about working in a gym in the prison.
Here?
Yeah, in the UK when I come back. And at the time they said that you could do it. But they were talking about privatising all the PTIs or whatever in the gyms and everything else. So I thought, I'm not going to go through that. But I met my grandpa, he's dead now. And he used to be a police officer years and years ago. And I said to him about prison service and he just looked at me, you don't want to do that, do you? And he'd never tell me not to do anything. Do you know what I mean? And I just thought, and I wasn't, my whole heart wasn't in it anyway. I was just trying to think of something to do. Do you know what I mean? And I just thought, no, you're right. I don't want to do that. So then there was another friend of mine who knew a lady who was like a chief inspector, anti-terrorist police, Gatwick, something like that. And she said she wanted to have a chat with me. So I had a chat with Sussex Police, that was. And she said, you'd have to be a police officer first and then we'll be able to get you over. And I thought, I don't want to be, I just don't want to be, and I can't do it. I don't want to be one. I've got, even for a day. Yeah. And I've got no disrespect to it, do you know what I mean? But I just,
I hear you.
It's just not for, you got to be the right person for that job. Let's put it like that, right? And I knew straight away I wasn't, right? But the anti-terrorist side of Gatwick, he was in plain clothes. It was all anti-terrorist stuff. You weren't out down the local Yates in Gatwick nicking everyone on a Saturday night. Do you know what I mean? So I thought that appealed to me. I'd done obviously a lot of work around airports in Afghanistan and everything, so I know a bit about it, which is why they were quite keen to have me. I can't remember what it was. It was something like, we got right up to the end and I thought, I don't know, live in Eastbourne, up the M23 to Gatwick, perfect. And then she went something like 28 grand or 26 grand a year. I was thought, fuck that, do you know what I mean? No chance. Oh, you get your overtime and I got to do petrol driving up and down, and I was thought, no. Right at the same time, I got offered a job working for Dubai Royal Family in London, bodyguard job, which was better money, 5 days, 5 nights, 5 off, house with the job. So I could live in London, didn't have to commute. And I say a house, wasn't that fancy. It was quite a few security guys living in it, you know, but it was a security house, if you like. I thought, that's more like it. And I thought, get up London, you know, see where things are. So I took that job. It was actually a peach of a job. I did like 2 days work in the whole 8 months or something. It was too seasonal. I did 2 years of it. Going back again, because I missed another bit out. When I was in Iraq doing the convoys, the guy who used to run our armoury and have all the weapons in there, he was an older guy, ex-British Army guy, but a lot older. And I said to him, mate, what was you doing before you started doing private security? He said, I just finished on a film He said, I used to do a bit of film work, and I'd never heard of film work. So I said, what's that about? And he goes, well, I was the military advisor for Troy, the movie Troy. So he told me all about it. So I said, that sounds like good fun. Anyway, he wrote down a phone number on it, gave it to me on a bit of card, and I stuck it in my bag because I knew I couldn't do nothing because I was working in Iraq. And that was in 2006, early 2006. So go forward now to 2008, nearly 9, where I'm living in London. I'm unpacking my kit in this house for this Dubai job. This card falls out. I thought, oh, fuck, I forgot about that. Looked on it, Googled the number and that to see what it was. And the place was in Shepherd's Bush, which obviously around the corner from Battersea. So I was like, oh, I can apply for this now. So I rung them up. They said, yeah, go online, do all your paperwork. There's quite a lot of paperwork for it. I looked at it and I thought, oh, can I be asked? I thought, well, if I don't do the paperwork, I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get any work. So I did it all. And they replied and said, look, our books aren't open until next August. But we'll be in touch then. So I thought, all right. And it's like June or July that year then. So I thought I've got a year to wait. But at least, I've set the seed, if you like. I forget about it until then. Anyway, come to the end of the Dubai job I was on, which was around end of September, something like that. I was in the gym, and back in the days where I could leave my mobile phone in the locker, and it had a voicemail. And this guy says, "Hi Simon, it's Chuck. I wonder if you could fly out to Morocco on Monday to do a film with Matt Damon." Right, so I thought, well, this is one of the blokes winding me up. Do you know what I mean?
One of them,
because they've already told me it's nothing until next August. And then the other lads were like, do you know what I mean? So I thought I could imagine it in a minute. I'm going back to the house, going, guess where I'm going here? No, you're not. Do you know what I mean?
Like Jeremy Beadle, hidden camera somewhere.
So I thought, I've got to be careful here. Right. So I Googled the number he called me from, and it was this place. It come up on Google. So I called him back, and he said, yeah, can you do it? I said, well, I finished, I'm on a job at the moment till Tuesday. He said, oh, you need to fly Monday. And I thought, it's 2.5 months or something, 2 months. And I thought, I don't want to miss out on all that because of one day. I said, right, leave it with me. So I said to one of the lads, look, can you just cover me for one day? The guy who was looking after wasn't even in anyway. It's just the last day of the job. Do you know what I mean? So he said, yeah, go. So I flew out to Morocco the day after finishing that job. And I did the Green Zone thriller I played a US Special Forces soldier. And that was my first ever movie I did. And I always remember thinking, I fancied doing it a bit late. I couldn't do it then because I was still a working bodyguard, but I fancied doing it a bit later on in life, acting and film work, because it was actually meant to be set in Baghdad, that movie. We was firing, shooting, bombs going up and all this shit. They had the heat and everything was all going on, but without anyone firing back, and I weren't at all stressed. Do you know what I mean? And I was thinking, this is exactly like what I've just been doing, but without all the fuss. Do you know what I mean? So I knew then, I worked on that. I come back. When I finished, I went on the ships, did anti-piracy on the ships for a couple of years. And we used to go away for about 10 or 12 days at a time, come back. And you could pretty much jump on at that time. You could jump on and jump off a ship whenever you wanted. So you could do one a month, or you could do 2 or 3 a month. It was up to you. I roughly did one a month.
When you did it, were you allowed to carry machine guns on the ship?
So to start with, no.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, to start with, no. And then as it went on, yes, we started getting them. But in the early days, no.
So you were on ships, protecting the ship with no guns, no nothing, and the Somali pirates are climbing up trying to nick the ship?
Yeah, so when I did it, it'd be a 4-man team, and we used to wire up the boats. We'd put razor wire, barbed wire, all around the outside of the vessel, and anywhere where you thought it might be handy inside. But you weren't allowed in and out of port with that razor wire on. With it on.
Oh, with it on. Okay,
so you had to. If we got picked up in Saudi, let's say, and we was going to get off in Port Suez, Egypt, so which is quite a common route for the security for the ships. Sorry, Oman, not Saudi. Oman to Port Suez. You'd have to wait until you're sort of almost a day into your journey, and then you can wire up because you're far enough away for it to not be a problem. And then you get past a place called Bab el-Mandeb, which is where it goes very. It comes in, the shoreline comes on, so it channels everyone in, which is at the time was also just not far from the coast of Somalia, where everyone would be attacking. Literally, an oil tank or LPG tank or whatever passed through there every 6 minutes or something. And in the early days, not a lot of them had security on it, so they were getting done quite a lot at the time. But but you put the wire on. Once you were through there, you had not long to get the wire off,
Before going
so you
back
could go into Port Series. Yeah. So that was really there was measures that the captain you could get the captains to do with the boat in terms of I mean those things didn't go fast at all, like 20 knots if you're lucky, especially if it's full. But you could steer the boat on a course where it makes quite a big wake around the boat, which makes it hard for the skiffs to get up to the side of the boat. I mean, all this is not
skiffs.
So skiffs is like the speedboats, what they come in on,
Right. Okay.
really quickly.
Yeah.
Quite often because they're small, you don't see them until they're quite close. They're often white, which means they blend into the sea quite a lot, and there's normally sort of 4 or 5 of them at once. They never really approach from the rear because it's hard for them to get up. So quite often they do come from the front. But the only good thing about it is when we had firearms, we were on quite a safe, still platform. They're not. So it's a bit of a turkey shoot at times.
Yeah. How were you getting them off then if you didn't have machine guns?
Well, lucky, I never had any get on.
Right. Okay.
Luckily.
Okay.
And actually, when we started getting weapons, one of the things we went from having nothing to sort of kind of having everything we needed, because I did a couple of jobs with some Russian AK-47s, which weren't all that, but then we got proper weapons after that. And one of the weapons we got was a shotgun, and we used to use a shotgun if they got on board. So you could take them out while they were on board with the shotgun. I never had to do that, by the way, but that was what it was for. Yeah. Look, when we wasn't armed, you could fire the flares, the ship's flares in the skipper's things. You know what I mean? Fuck mate, really. It's not a lot you can do. One thing I did have, actually, it was one of the first ones I ever done when we wasn't armed. We was escorted by a Japanese warship the whole way, which the tanker company paid for that. So there was no way we was getting touched. So we had a battleship take us up the way to where so that was I don't know why we had security on that, to be honest, because it was a nothing job that for us. But yeah, the other ones I've been on where there's nothing you can do. Oh, we had a thing called LRAD. I think it's called that. Everyone's going, no, it's not. It's basically a box, what you press and it fires like a beam of sound. I mean, looking back at it, how they managed to come up with that and sell them, I don't know, right? But you aim it at the skiff, if you like, or if I aimed it at you, you just kind of have to, like, it's that the pitch of the noise of it is that bad for your ears. And the idea was it was meant to make them. I mean, it's hideous when you think about it now, but meant to make them turn around and, not want to come close because it's hurting their ears. So, I mean, these things are like shit. And they were big old boxes. Quite often we have to fly out with them from London. So you'd have to pay all the extra on that. I mean, we wouldn't, but, the company would pay all the extra on it. It's just shit. It's a kit. So we never had much faith in that. We did have that thing, but we never had much faith. Some guys, I didn't, but some guys were making, on other ships, made cardboard cutouts or wooden looking firearms, so you can hold them up, and from a distance they look like firearms. We never did that.
How mad's that you weren't allowed them on back then?
I know,
really, when you think about it.
And the problem with it is once you're 12 miles out, there's no jurisdiction. So effectively you can do anything you want because no country's law does protect you for 12 miles out. So where it's a bit different is the flag state of the ship. So if it's a Saudi ship, if it's American, British ship, whatever, I think you could probably, if I shot you on board on purpose, then you come under the jurisdiction of the ship. But in terms of firearms, the biggest problems with firearms and getting them out there and why it took so long was because they had to come into a country in the first place before you could take them out. Okay. And quite often we would meet boats with firearms on, which we would collect at certain waypoints on the trip. So the firearms stayed out on the sea the whole time.
Right.
And they went between different teams, and you just have someone bothered around out there in almost a static position for quite a long time, just giving out the firearms, collecting them, and look like a mobile armory, but out on the water. Because then you got away from all the ticket problems and can't bring them to this country. And you used to pass a lot of countries. I got on in Kenya once and got off in South Africa. That Oman to Port Series I've done God knows how many times.
Where's Port Series?
Egypt,
okay.
I can't remember. I've done Malacca Straits. There's loads of different, you never really knew. And I went on a job which was going to be 2 weeks. It lasted 6. because you get stuck or something happens. You know, I mean, I wasn't a sea person either. I've got to be honest. I was always sick.
Yeah.
Without fail, it's always a must for me. But once I was sick, I was fine. But it didn't matter how big the boat was. You know, I was always sick the first 24 hours, only for a little bit, you know, but then once I was sick, I was fine. I did about a year and a half, 2 years, but on and off, it wasn't consistent. Because around the same time I was finished with the Dubai family, I set up a private security company, which I still own today.
Yeah. What's the name of that?
Escorting Secure.
Okay. And what was that like for you going, right, I want to set up my own business now? What's that journey been like over the last sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 years?
Well, that's kind of what I do a lot of now is business. Obviously, I actually like doing business.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoy that side of it. And the fact that I've got a security company, it's only because that's what I knew back when I started it. I would start up a business selling dog shit if it was going to, you know, do what I wanted it to do. Because I enjoy the business side of it, not so much anything else. But yeah, I mean, I started getting asked to do lots of work when people knew I was in the UK. I was never out of work, but I couldn't do it all. Because you can't be, you know, one place, one time, and all that. So when I'd say, "Oh, do you want me to?" I'd have a ring round, see who's free if you need someone, and all that. And then I used to think, well, what am I doing this for? Like, I can just do my own thing, you know. And that's kind of what it did. But the first contract, guy, my business partner, who works for me now still today, worked as doing a lot of hotel security. So he's from a different background to me. We got the Intercontinental Hotel in Park Lane was our first contract we got, as providing the security there. And that's just gone from that, back in, I think 12 years have been going now roughly, to what we got today. And today we've got just a bit of everything, you know, building sites, theatres, private residences, bodyguard work, still very much heavy in the hotel side of things, private events, celebrity weddings. What would
a bodyguard get per day working on a Brunei job or an A-lister, or what do they go out for roughly?
Just depends. It depends on a lot of things. In the States, get paid really well. UK, not so.
Okay. Roughly, what sort of money a day?
It could be anything from $250 a day to 600 or 700 quid.
Yeah.
Literally could be anything in between. So like all the Arab work, which is like your lower level bodyguard stuff really, which most guys, that's how you start.
Yeah.
Because you're, you know, following people around shops, going for cake and tea and all the rest of it. It's not a big deal really. It's not that much expected from you. Which is a good place, you know, it's a good starting block. They're probably $250 a day, something like that. I when I was with celebrities and stuff, in the end, quite often I didn't work for companies, security companies. I worked maybe direct to the record label or to the model agency or whatever. So that's when you can get more money.
Yeah, okay. What sort of celebrities have you worked with over the last 10 years?
Rita, I was with for a while. Bella Hadid I was with for quite a while.
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3 years in the UK only with her. Gigi, her sister, very little bit. Kendall Jenner. Dizzy Rascal.
Good lad?
Yeah. Still talk to Dizzy now. She's nice. Yeah, I like Dizzy.
Yeah, nice fella.
Yeah. He's just about to do a tour actually.
Yeah.
Newcastle and a few other places.
That's right.
I forget half of people, mate. And there is, and I only really count these ones I just told you. These people, Naomi Campbell, Kate Moss. Yeah. These are the people I've done sort of significant time with. You can do jobs sometimes where you might do an evening with someone or something. I don't really count them because it's just like, you know. But yeah, these are all people that if they stood in front of me, they're all going to know who I am. Let's put it like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you come quite close to one of the celebrities?
On train, sat next to her.
Yeah.
That's what you meant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us that.
Says it's so serious as well. Tell us that. No. No, I mean, look, it's not a question I've not had before.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lie and say no.
Yeah.
Because it's a yes. But that's all I'm going to say on it.
Okay. I've really enjoyed this episode.
Good.
Really enjoyed it. It's been a proper pleasure. You've certainly lived an eventful life.
Yeah.
And what I liked about it is that you've done everything you wanted to do. And you know in your own mind, you go, I'm done with that. I need to do something else. I'm done with that. I need to do something else. And you act immediately, right?
Yeah, and I definitely, and I hope as well, because I'm 44 now, you know, I'm talking about the clothing brand, and there might be another business later on, and there's a Bodyguard show, actually, we're talking to Channel 4 about, I think, or someone similar to that at the moment, which I can't say nothing about purely because I don't know much about it. There's loads of stuff in the pipeline, because as much as I don't mind talking about my past, I know it's interesting, I want to be able to tell people what I'm doing next. And I haven't given up. I'm not 44 and now just going to keep talking about what I've done. Do you know what I mean? Because I've got just as much exciting stuff coming up now to maybe 2 or 3 years' time come back and have another go. Do you know what I mean? But if I was 65 and retired, I've got no problem with keep talking about what I've only done. 44.
And you might have regret at 65, still been a bodyguard. I've wasted 20 years.
Exactly.
I could set up a couple of businesses. Or,
yeah, I've had a great career, but I'm 44. What are you doing now? Nothing. Well, why have you just given, you know? So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, carrying it on.
Good for you, Si.
Yeah.
Mate, real pleasure today.
Yeah, it's been fun, right?
Yeah, real good fun. I think it was a cracking episode. People are going to love this.
Yeah.
You're a good man.
Thanks,
I
mate.
wish you all the best in everything you do.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, you've got a big future. It's still 20, 30 years in business, 40 years in business, maybe.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope to make some waves and see some difference in the next few years.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing a bomber jacket.
Yeah, you'll love them.
Good man. Cheers, Si.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Can you do us a favour and subscribe to the channel? It's totally free and it massively helps our show. Cheers guys.